Today we're going to dive into the topic of long-term food storage, specifically dehydrated and freeze-dried foods. I've titled today's video Freeze-Dried Foods, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly for a reason. There are certainly a lot of pitfalls and landmines you have to watch out for as you navigate down the road of purchasing these types of foods for preparedness or just daily use, camping and hunting and so on. We're going to break this down for you in a way that I think will be useful to you and arm you with some knowledge and tools to be an informed buyer before you step out and start throwing down your hard-earned cash in this arena. Let's get started. The first thing we need to get squared away in about these products is what is the difference between freeze drying and dehydrating mean. They both essentially mean that moisture has been removed from the product. However, the process of getting there between these two is entirely different. In freeze drying, the food is placed in specialized equipment that takes the food to an extremely low temperature and then brings it slightly up to where the ice crystals turn into a vapor. The food is under a vacuum environment and that moisture is rapidly removed from the food. In dehydrating, the process is simply just being placed in a warm, dry air environment for some given period of time until the moisture is brought out of the food. Between these two processes, it's commonly believed that freeze drying is the better of them due to the fact that the food typically retains better taste quality, nutrient value, and texture versus dehydrating. However, that may not be true in all different food products. Doing some research on this topic, I found one highly respected freeze-dried food manufacturer's website that stated the following. Standard dehydrated food generally has about 80 to 95% of its moisture removed, depending on the specific process and other factors. By comparison, freeze-drying food removes some 98 to 99% of the product's moisture. That being the case, then it would seem that freeze drying has some advantage for long-term food storage. These products are clearly labeled freeze-dried or dehydrated, so there isn't a mystery about which one you're buying. The idea is just do your research and be informed on what you're purchasing, and so you'll know exactly what you're getting. Some products are neither freeze-dried or dehydrated specifically. They can be a standard mixture of dried goods like dried beans, white rices, powdered seasoning mixes, and so on. Some of these items might have some freeze-dried elements into them, onions, tomatoes, etc. The important thing is when you're looking at foods like this is that you're buying from a reputable manufacturer that knows how to remove oxygen and properly seal these types of products in number 10 cans and or Mylar pouches so that you ensure long shelf life. Okay, we covered in the beginning of the video what the difference between freeze-dried and dehydrated food is. Now let's go to our list of the good, bad, and the ugly, starting with the good. By removing the moisture from the food, this makes a lightweight product that does not need any refrigeration. That's obviously one of the first and primary reasons that people want to use it for emergency preparation. When this stuff is properly packaged, it can have a 25 or longer year shelf life to it, which again makes it ideal for building a prepper pantry or just even having around for camping and hunting, hiking, those types of things. One of the things that I like about freeze-dried food is it's easily prepared by simply rehydrating it, which we're going to do right now, and cook this up for dinner by using a simple rocket stove that are commonly available, used for camping all over the place. All of these attributes add up, in my opinion, to a product that is an ideal resource for any emergency food storage plan. So let's get going here and we'll show you just how simple we can make a meal using our freeze-dried food. Our water has come to a boil. I've opened up our envelope here. You can take a look inside and you can get an idea of what freeze-dried food looks like. There's your oxygen absorber that we want to remove. And that's one of the things that I was talking about properly packaging it for long shelf life. You see what freeze-dried food looks like. It's just a very dry consistency. See if I can get a shot of that without my fingers blocking it. It reminds me of croutons or something right now, just very light, food that has no moisture in it. So according to the Mountain House instructions, they tell you to open the package, get rid of the oxygen absorber, add 1 3/4 cups of boiling water, stir carefully. The nice thing about these packages are too is they have a seal on them that you just close back up. You cook it right here in the envelope. It's common knowledge that you add a little less water to these foods than what they specify on the packet. I found that to be true, so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm adding about 1.5 cups is all. We'll wait 5 minutes, and it says stir again and reseal. All I do is just squish it around in the packet, leave it sealed, and another 4 minutes, and we'll have dinner ready to go. I've already measured this out. This is exactly 1.5 cups now, so we'll go ahead and pour that in. We'll seal this up. If I can do it one-handed here. There we go. And we'll just pay attention to our time now, and in about 9 minutes we'll have a delicious meal. And there you go. In a little less than 10 minutes we've got delicious hot beef stew for dinner. Combine this with the hot cornbread that my wife just pulled out of the oven, made from items out of our working pantry that we talked about in a prior video, and we've got a great dinner. This was all made from emergency food storage and/or working pantry, and it could have easily been done in a grid down or an emergency situation. I've had this entree before, and to be completely honest, it's one of my top 5 favorites. I think it's delicious with no off-putting taste or texture that we've noticed, and I think it's just a good way to kind of conclude the good about freeze-dried food column. Okay, we've covered some of the good qualities to using these types of foods in your emergency preparedness plan. Now let's talk about some of the negative or bad attributes to it. First and foremost would have to simply be cost. There is extra equipment and manufacturing processes that have to be used to produce this stuff, and so therefore that cost is passed on to you and I, the consumer. Freeze-dried food is expensive to buy, and furthermore, it's not just found anywhere. This stuff is usually purchased online or at several specialty retailers, although more and more I am seeing some of it in big box stores, but typically only in pouches in the envelopes that we have showed you today. Some of this food, and we're going to talk about sodium content and preservatives, and I know this is where sometimes the arguments come up about you would be lucky to have anything to eat in an emergency situation, and I agree with that. I certainly understand where people like that are coming from, but for some people with certain medical conditions and other problems, let's be honest, they have to watch these types of ingredients as part of their daily health, or they can have problems. Some of this stuff can be very high in preservatives and sodium. Here's an example here, if we can get that to focus. Here's an example here of 1/3 cup serving in this particular product here, having 860 milligrams of salt. It's very possible as well that if you were working or expending a lot more energy daily and sweating in a grid down or that emergency type situation, it's very possible that your body could use that salt as well. So that's just something to think about. Some people may have an issue with that. We're going to talk about probably one of the biggest things that you'll find in a response in people when you talk about freeze-dried food. You'll see some people curl their lip up and get that disgusted look on their face. And we're going to cook up some breakfast right now and talk about probably the number one thing you hear, and that's the consistency of these kinds of products. And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to show you what it looks like as we cook some up, and I'm going to show you some tricks and things that you can do to overcome that problem. The reality of it is we're taking a dehydrated product or a freeze-dried product, and we're adding water back to it to make it palatable to eat. So anytime you're doing something like that, we're not eating five-star cuisine for sure. So let's get started on our breakfast, and we'll show you some of that. Okay, scrambled eggs, it's what's for breakfast. I'm going to cook this package up of food just to talk about some of the off-putting qualities of freeze-dried food to some people. I'm not dissing on this particular product that we're that we're using here. It's actually one of my favorites. I think it has very good flavor, but I just wanted to display it by cooking it up and showing you what we're talking about. This is what you're getting here. It's freeze dried, and so this is some scrambled eggs, but you know, it looks kind of like a little piece of styrofoam that's been broken off in there. And this is the kind of thing that can be off-putting to some people when you cook this up. Well, rather than talk about it, I'm going to show you. We're going to cook this up, and we'll talk about what the consistency and the texture of this can be like. And I'm going to talk about some ways that you can fix this as well. And furthermore, I just want to add one more thing while we're talking about freeze-dried food that can be, I don't know that it's necessarily a bad quality per se, but I think it's worth noting. And that is, you have to use water to rehydrate this food. Now, that in itself isn't a bad thing, but it's certainly a consideration for you if you're trying to store or build up an emergency response plan and you were using a lot of this type of food in that plan. You would have to plan accordingly with your water storage as well. It's just something else to think about. Let's get started cooking this up. Okay, we're going to do the same method that we did yesterday by following the plan, prepare, and practice model of this channel. And we're going to use some of the equipment that we have around, and just, it's a good time to crack it out, make sure it works, get familiar with it. This little rocket stove, I think, is just a great little tool for this kind of thing. Okay, we're going to get this lid off. I've got my water pre-measured like we did before, and we'll get that boiled up, and we'll be right back as soon as this water is ready. Water is boiled. We're going to do the same thing that we showed you before. It didn't take but just a few minutes for that to boil in that thing. It really puts out the heat. I'm going to pour in the specified amount of hot water in there. Seal up our envelope, and per the Mountain House instructions, it says to not throw it down on the ground. It says to close up, let it sit for about 3 minutes, stir again, then let it stand for another 5 or 6 minutes. I tend to just stir like this in these pouches. It's a little hot, so don't burn your fingers. You can also stir it around like that, but I don't feel the need to open it back up each time. I just stir it like that. So we'll wait about, I don't know, 8-9 minutes or so, and we'll come back and we'll show you what we've got. We've let it sit for the specified time. Now we're going to see some of the bad. This is what turns a lot of people off to these kind of foods, and this is what it's going to look like to you. Not too appealing, is it? Now, to be fair, I did put the required or specified amount of water in there, and like I told you on the last envelope that we cooked up, I never do that. I typically put a little bit less, and that does help this dish quite a bit. You can see that our egg is kind of like a soggy piece of styrofoam now. You can squeeze some of the water out of it. And this is part of the problem with these foods to some people, and that's why I'm including it in the, quote, bad column. Let me show you a couple of quick tricks, though, on how we can make this much more palatable. We're just going to simply take this dish, we're going to use a simple strainer, and we're going to get rid of a lot of that extra water that doesn't need to be in there. That's going to get you a long way down the road to making this a little bit more like scrambled eggs. Lastly, you can always throw it in a pan, and we'll go back to our trusty stove here. Let me get this thing lit up. These little stoves actually put out a lot of heat, so be careful with them. You can burn food, I think, pretty quick with them. And I do believe I'm testing the maximum capacity of weight on there with this huge frying pan for that little stove, but it's going to work. We're going to be just fine. This little extra step right here is just a way to cook off some more of that water and maybe help give your eggs a little bit better consistency. We'll just do this for a few minutes, and we'll be back and show you what our end product looks like. Starting to smell like bacon out here, and it does smell good. We've cooked most of the water out of our rehydrated freeze-dried eggs here. The smell is delicious. I know it's the view that we showed you about that to make a point was a little off-putting, but this entree is actually delicious. The eggs and bacon flavor are very good. And now we're just going to simply plate this up, and you'll see the difference between what we showed you in the beginning and what you have now. There's nothing wrong with this at all. That's a meal that I would eat all day long, in an emergency, out on the trail, camping, hiking, whatever needs that you're using this stuff for. So this just gives you an idea of what is off-putting to a lot of people about freeze-dried food and why I've included it in the bad column. But it doesn't mean that you can't learn a few tricks and tips on how to make this stuff tasty and something that's appealing to eat. Okay, we've talked about some of the good and the bad with investing in these products to an emergency response plan. Now let's talk about the ugly. Topping the ugly list is the ever-increasing price hikes on these products over this last year, combined with limited availability of inventory. Beware of marketing strategies when you're shopping for these products. Oftentimes, manufacturers will advertise a lot of servings in a container or package. However, when you look at the actual serving sizes, you'll see that they can be surprisingly small. It's my suggestion that you look at total calorie count in the food products that you're buying, and then you'll be better able to judge if you're meeting your target goal for your emergency response plan or not. The point is, some of these containers can have a surprisingly low amount of food in them, even though it looks like a large can that you're purchasing. Here's a good example of a failure on an emergency can of food. This one has obviously gone bad. We can tell by the bulging container. This can of food had less than 4 years of life on it since the date of purchase and was stored under the correct conditions. Additionally, a quick check online showed me that there were multiple complaints on the very same product from the same manufacturer. This is a good reminder why it's important to only buy your freeze-dried food products from a reputable manufacturer with a proven track record. Additionally, be aware that not all freeze-dried food has a 20 to 30 year shelf life. Some products may only have a 5, 7, or 10 year shelf life, even from the same manufacturer. It's important for you to do research on the products that you're buying and know what the manufacturer's estimated shelf life of a specific product is. As we wrap up this final category, I wanted to take a minute and just talk about these emergency food supply buckets that have become so popular this last year. Like with all freeze-dried foods, the cost of these products has gone up substantially as well. And I think it's very important that the buyer scrutinizes closely what it is he's actually purchasing when he's grabbing one of these things and just throwing it in the shopping cart. Not all of these products are the same. Some manufacturers have a fairly well-rounded kit with a lot of good quality food in its contents. Others, and seems like more and more, many of them are just containing high carb, low protein, cheaper foods like mashed potatoes, oatmeal, macaroni and cheese, and this kind of thing. It's true that calorie count is what's important when you're looking at an emergency food bucket, as you'll often hear. I agree with that, but I also think that it's important to maintain some nutritional value as well, like protein and other things that we need, especially when we're expending a lot of calories and energy working harder like we possibly would be in a grid down or emergency situation. For my money, if I'm going to spend $90 to $100 on a bucket of oatmeal, mashed potatoes, and macaroni and cheese, I would seriously consider purchasing these items individually or in bulk and repackaging them myself for long-term storage. I would end up with much more product for the same amount of money out. However, if you're not going to invest that much time and energy into this, then just grabbing some of these buckets certainly would be a better option than doing nothing. Again, the idea is to make sure that you have enough calories and nutritional value to keep you and your family in a position to succeed and thrive in an emergency situation. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button down below, and also leave any questions or thoughts that you have about freeze-dried food in the comment section, and we'll try to either answer your questions or be glad to listen to your opinions and ideas as well. As always, remember, get ready so that you and your family can succeed and thrive.